efforts to unite Somalia and restore the Somali government and the dignity of the people. I congratulate you on your victory. We pray that Allah makes this role easy for you, as it is an uphill task to lead the people.
All right, the community-led development is a global alliance of development partners seeking to empower communities to lead their own development. The Kenyan chapter of the movement is set to be launched tomorrow here in Nairobi. Now, John Kunkod is the founder of the community-led development movement and now joins me in studio to talk about why it is important for Kenya as it seeks to achieve initiatives such as the Big Four Agenda, the Vision 2030, as well as the Standard Development Goals. Many thanks for making time. Welcome.
Jesse, thank you for having me here today.
All right, now let's talk more about the community-led development.
Yes.
How exactly can communities take charge in the process of achieving these development goals? And what role does the community-led development movement play in enabling these communities achieve this role?
Two good questions. So the big four agenda items: food security, affordable health, affordable housing, manufacturing, these can only be solved at the community level. You know, you can't the farmers of this country, the providers of food security, have to have local institutions that are responsive, that are accountable, where they can set the priorities because they know what needs to be done. So that requires strong institutions at the community level. Fortunately, Kenya, under its 2010 constitution, has moved power and resources much closer to the people. And and also it requires citizens to participate directly in governance and development. So, for example, this very week in Makueni County, thousands of village-level meetings are being held at the ward level, and then they'll bubble up to the sub-county and to the county level, so that people will have real voice in the decisions that affect their lives.
All right, now, one of the greatest challenges for community-led development is that many of the upcoming or struggling economies, you know, in terms of public resources, these public resources do not necessarily reach the communities. Or let's look at it differently. In the case that they are getting to the local communities, right, achieving a fair share is a challenge as well. Now, tell us about how the community-led development plans to work against this challenge in order to enable Kenya achieve the Big Four Agenda.
Well, you know, to shift from a top-down to a bottom-up paradigm of development is a big change in mindset for both citizens and for government. Mm-hmm. Now, Kenya's county government system has provided the resources to these counties. So if people understand that, if they know that they can directly participate in setting the priorities and setting the budgets, then they will. So it requires a lot of community mobilization, a lot of awareness, the development of leadership among grassroots groups to really set their agendas and speak up, particularly for marginalized groups. So the civil society organizations, that's their expertise. So while county government has to provide services, has to set up a framework and legal structures, the mobilization of people can best be done by civil society groups. So what the movement envisions is mobilizing civil society groups all over the country to work in partnership with county government to really have this agenda succeed.
All right. Well, even as we push this message of community-led development, we have to bear in mind that social forces actually play a hand in the progress of this particular initiative. Now, I mean, how will this actually fit in the overall political system? You know, considering bureaucracy in each and every country is different, and this has a very significant importance.
Well, if you take, for example, Korea after the Korean War, had no mineral resources, one of the poorest countries in the world. they launched this kind of program of community-led development, where they really transformed the mindset of local governments, of citizens, and in fact, over about a 10-year period, the mean income in rural areas, thanks to this program, was actually higher than the mean income in urban areas. So the great wealth of Korea is attributed to this kind of unleashing of the creativity and productivity of millions of rural people who've previously been marginalized.
All right. Now, the Kenyan chapter is set to be launched tomorrow.
Yes.
Perhaps give us a little bit of insight into what we should actually expect in terms of the launch, but also what steps you've taken in place in order to ensure that, yes, we're launching the Kenyan chapter, but to ensure that the benefit is maximized
Yes.
in terms of the impact in the community level.
Well, the launching will be a launching. We'll have a wonderful panel of some of the best minds in civil society and different organizations in the country. Our keynote address will be by Professor Kibwana, who leads McWhenry County and has really shown the way to how to mobilize communities within county governance. Mm-hmm. So it'll set the tone. It'll be a great curtain raiser. And then the very next day, the 10 organizations that have organized this chapter will be meeting to do a strategic planning session to really look at what are the highest leverage actions that can be taken next month, the month after, the year after, to maximize this unleashing of human potential all over Kenya.
All right, this is not the first country that, the community-led development movement is launching. Perhaps borrowing from the other countries as well. We well know that countries are different in terms of, the political structure, in terms of the community setting as well.
Yes.
What can we bring into Kenya in terms of the previous experience you've had in other countries?
Well, I think one of the most important things, and it was mentioned earlier in your program, is the leadership of women. So ensuring that women are organized, that they are able to have their own voice, their own agenda, and really project that into the community. That youth themselves are organized, that they have set their agenda, that they're not pushed to the side. So having the groups that are often ignored or marginalized, having them develop their leadership in their own local organizations so that they can effectively demand what they need to be successful.
All right. Inclusion is very important in terms of, marginalized communities as such. As we conclude, perhaps closing comments on, we are moving towards Vision 2030 as a country, and we also have the 16 SDGs under the United Nations as well, and the Big Four agenda as well.
Yes.
Now, you're mentioning that the secret lies in, the bottom-up approach, starting from the bottom in order to make these goals a reality.
Exactly.
So in terms of the potential a community has in actually achieving various goals, just bring us a little bit up to speed in terms of how you think the Big Four agenda has been working so far. I'm sure you've looked into it, and in terms of incorporating various communities in this particular move.
Well, I think, really Kenyans have to do that analysis, not outsiders. But I do know that, for example, the World Bank has shown that when there's community-led development, services get better. People can exert their voice and insist that things get better.
Yes.
They can also bring their voluntary efforts. For example, in countries where the Hunger Project has worked, such as Uganda, they train up lots of volunteer animators in the community, and these animators can meet with the technical professionals that are very scarce in the rural areas to really amplify their ability to reach every